Hello, welcome to today's business studies class. My name is Emmanuel Wido. In today's class, we are looking at the theme bookkeeping and business success and the topic personal finance part 2. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to define the term modesty, state the attributes of modesty, identify the link between modesty and extravagance, and lastly, prepare a personal budget. The ability of a human being to be able to meet his or her daily needs and wants and still have enough to either invest or save depends on how well he or she is able to manage his or her resources. In this class, we will be looking at some of the things that could make you be in debt or be able to invest even when you're trying to meet your daily needs and wants. So what are these things? Let's proceed by looking at one of them. The first of them is modesty. Modesty refers to the act of not spending much money in a bid to meet your needs and wants. It is the ability of an individual to not spend much income while trying to meet your daily needs. By so doing, a modest person is able to invest and also save. Modesty keeps you away from debt while spending. What are the attributes of modesty? Highlighted are attributes of modesty. The first of them is absence of greed. We have accountability. We have truthfulness. We also have contentment. We have planning and debt-free. Let's go on in this class by looking at these attributes in detail. Absence of greed. Greed can be defined as a selfish desire for something. Something does not belong to you, but you have a selfish desire to acquire it. You also know you don't have the means to acquire this thing, but because you have greed in you, there's this drive that you want to do anything whatsoever to acquire it. This is not an attribute of a modest person. So if you say you are a modest person, then you shouldn't be greedy. The next is accountability. Modesty encourages and trains individuals to keep track of expenses. In a situation where mommy gives you 50 naira to probably for upkeep as she is going out, and when she returns, she decides to request on how you went about spending the money. But you have a list of the things you bought, so you just present the list. Mommy, I was hungry, I bought this, I bought that. So mommy is able to trust you with her funds whenever she is going out. Going further, we have truthfulness. Being truthful is an act of telling the truth always. When they ask who did this, you know you're the one. Just said, Mommy, I'm sorry, I'm the one that did it. That's what a modest person is able to do. Contentment. Now, this is the act of being satisfied with the resources available. Mommy has garri. You want to eat rice. Mommy says, no, what is in the house is garri. You said, okay, you eat the garri. But a greedy child will go about crying. Mommy, no, I want to eat rice. I want to eat rice. And the whole neighborhood will know that there's no rice in the house, but there's garri. No. You're not a modest child. When you're a modest child, you'll be contented with what is at home. When there's rice, you eat rice. When there's garri, you make do with the garri available at home. That's what a good business studies and a modest student will do. And finally, for this class, we have planning. Modest individuals know how to plan. Before the money comes in, they have a list and they stick to that list. This is what I want to use the money for. And they use the money for exactly what they had written on their list to do. With that, they are able to account for each amount they spend. So when you have these attributes, know that you're heading towards modesty. The second thing that could affect your spending is being extravagant. What does that mean? This refers to the act of spending more money than necessary just because mommy gave you 100,000 naira. You decide to buy things you don't need, things that are not necessary, just because you want to spend money. Now you're wasting. This does not in any way encourage investment and savings. As such, we could say it discourages investment and savings. So if you can't save or invest when you had a lot of money to spend, then know that you are extravagant. And that pushes you into debt, stealing, borrowing. Let's compare these two things, extravagance and modesty. The differences between being modest and being extravagant. The first of them is that a modest person spends money with limits. The fact that I have money doesn't mean I should spend it anyhow. While an extravagant person spends money without limits. A modest person lives a debt-free life, but an extravagant person lives a life full of debt. A modest person encourages investment and savings. An extravagant person does not even have the resources to invest and save, so extravagance discourages investment and savings. Modesty is the function of self-discipline. You have to discipline yourself to be modest. But an extravagant person is a function of greed. And lastly for this class, modesty is the ability to live within one's means. I know I don't have, so let it go. I'm not going to bother myself about it. But an extravagant person has the habit of living above his means. Going on in this class, let's look at how we could manage our resources. And that takes us to personal budget. What's personal budget? But first, what is a budget? A budget is a financial statement to estimate income and expenses over a specific period of time. Personal budget, also known as home budget, refers to finance plan that allocates future personal income towards expenses and debt repayment. You're expecting money, so you already have a list of the things you intend to use the money you're expecting to solve. That's what personal budget talks about. It is important to note that your past spending and personal debt are considered when you're preparing your personal budget. So you look at the list of things you bought maybe last year, and then you consider those you're owing in order to clear your debt and live a debt-free life. How do you prepare a personal budget? There are steps you should take while preparing a personal budget. Some of them are: assess your personal financial status, set personal and financial goals, identify your source of income, estimate expenses to be made, balance and adjust the budget, monitor actual income and expenses made over time, compare your personal budget with the amount you have actually spent. So let's look at them one after the other. Assess your personal financial status. This involves a self-assessment of one's personal income. It captures your earning levels, your spending habits, and your financial net worth. Going further, we have set personal and financial goals. You're setting your goals based on the money you earn. In January, I should be able to have my textbooks for the next class. So you're saving towards that. That's the goal. That's what you need to use your money for. That's what setting your personal and financial goals means. Furthermore, we have identify your source of income. In preparing your personal budget, you should always note where the source of income is coming from. Is it coming from daddy? Is it coming from mommy? Or did Uncle Okon, who lives abroad, promise to send something across to you? So you capture it. Money you're expecting from that mommy, daddy, so that you know exactly where your source of income is coming from. Next, we are looking at estimate expenses to be made. This part of the personal budget captures the proposed expenses and their relative market prices. So you went to the market, you have these prices. You're trying to use the prices you bought things before to structure your personal budget. That's what estimating talks about. You might go to the market and the price you captured is lower or higher than what you have on your list. So that's what you do when you are trying to prepare a personal budget. Furthermore, we have balance and adjust the budget. Here you're trying to see if the income you're expecting actually tallies with what you have written down to purchase. Mommy is saying she's going to give you 50,000 naira. What you have written down, is it equivalent to 50,000 naira, less than 50,000 naira, or more than 50,000 naira? When you're able to do this, you either adjust your budget to suit the 50,000 naira mommy is going to give you, or you will ask mommy to increase the 50,000 naira to suit your personal budget. So it's a two-way thing. Going further, we have monitor actual income and expenses made over time. So maybe you have been spending money and then you have spotted that there are days you took 2 bottles of Coke even when you did not have a need for them. And you're trying to reduce your consumption of Coke. By that, you are monitoring your expenses. You're checking for the things you did not need on your list and taking them off, and then trying to fix in those you actually need in the list. And you're also checking if the income, the amount of money you spent before, actually tallies with the balance you had after spending. So that's what monitoring of your past expenses talks about. And lastly, we have compare your personal budget with the amount you have actually spent. Let's assume that mommy gave you 50,000 naira for personal shopping. And after buying all the things you needed, your textbook, your socks, your school bag, you're expecting a balance of 5,000 naira. But all you can find in your wallet is 2,000 naira. If you had a personal budget, you will be able to track where you had spent more or where you had bought things that were not captured on your personal budget. So when you're able to do that, you will be able to account for things you bought that reduced the actual amount you were expecting to have. So this part of how to prepare a personal budget tries to help you compare your personal budget with the amount of money you have actually spent, just to ensure that the income you have in your wallet tallies with the reductions you have made while in the market. In this class, I told you that I was going to teach you how you can prepare a personal budget. Here is a typical personal budget of a secondary school student. Ijoma stays in the hostel and she has 2 sources of income, but in this case, she has a support from her uncle. So in her personal budget, we are capturing 3. But the basic sources of income are from daddy and mommy. So we have on the income side of Ijoma's personal budget, upkeep allowance from daddy, 20,000 naira. Support from mommy, 5,000 naira. And then support from Uncle Okonkwo, 5,000 naira. That means Ijoma is going to the hostel with 30,000 naira. Now she decides to go to the market. She has captured her toiletries as 3,000, listed all of them down to break time snacks for 21 days while in school. And she has a total of 24,750 naira as expenses to be made. Don't forget, these are promises of incomes to come, but this is how she is going to spend the money. And she plans on saving the balance, which is 5,250 naira. So here, Ijoma has a picture of what she intends using her 30,000 naira to do, and what the balance will be used for. As such, we could say that Ijoma is a modest student. If she was not a modest person, we will be having a situation where her expenses will exceed her income. But in this case, Ijoma is able to save. Having said all this, let's take a quick summary of what we have learned in our class today. In this class, I told you that modesty refers to the act of not spending much money in a bid to meet needs and wants. I also told you that some of the attributes of modesty are truthfulness, contentment, planning, and accountability, among others. I also mentioned that extravagance is the act of spending more money than income earned. Furthermore, we learned that greed is one of the attributes of an extravagant individual. Next, we learned that modesty encourages investment and savings, while extravagance discourages it. Furthermore, we learned that a budget is a financial statement of estimated income and expenses over a specific period of time. We also learned that personal budget refers to a financial plan that allocates future personal income towards expenses, savings, and debt repayment. And lastly, we learned that some of the steps to follow while preparing a personal budget are assessing the personal financial status, setting personal and financial goals, and identifying the source of income. Having captured all this in today's class, I am about testing to know how much you have gathered in our class today. Are you ready for my test questions? Question number 1. Dash refers to a financial statement of estimated income and expenses over a specific period of time. A. Modest. B. Budget. Or C. Extravagance. The right answer to this question is option B. Budget. Question number 2. The ability of an individual to manage his or her income in such a way that the basic needs are met is referred to as dash. A. Management. B. Modesty. Or C. Extravagance. The right option is option B. Modesty. This is where we draw the curtain in our class today. I hope by now you can differentiate between a modest and an extravagant person and prepare your own personal budget. Until I see you again in another business studies class. Bye-bye.